Okay, Saber fans, so continuing off of my last video, I'm going to be doing the assembly. So, literally have to do like nothing to this for a long time. First thing, be your thorax chassis. Make sure we got our right orientation here. One thing I was kind of playing around with on this chassis was, there's a little bit of a gap down here at the bottom. I was kind of playing around if, well, I'll show you in a second what I mean by the gap. Kind of playing around with the idea of either having it like this as it's shown, or moving these down. Could do it that way too, but I think this way is going to look better. That way you're going to see a bunch of wires coming down. This way you won't see nothing. So, I'm going to get our two socket head screws here. Gotta say the tolerances on this saber is just insanely good. I did lube up the threads on this and clean them out a little bit. They were a little dirty, so last thing I want is any of these threads to bind up. I'm definitely going to be having some LED strips on either side of the board. At least that's the goal anyways. Let's see here. So that was about where I wanted to place it. God, it's going to be tight. With these little bitty LEDs. Yeah, you could probably make it happen. Just want to make sure I'll actually get shine through out of this. I'm certain I would on this side. At the same time, you'll have to position them just right. I don't know, I'll have to wait and see what happens on that one. I was thinking it'd be really cool to have some shine through in these grooves here. So, this part gets a little finicky, I guess would be the right word. First time I reassembled this, I went about it the wrong way. So in order for this to work, you have to make sure that you put the micro USB on last, because you can't get these button head screws past the micro USB, and they're too long to get them in that way. Well, I guess that might, no, that wouldn't work, because if this is attached you can't get the threads over the hole, so have to install that last. So what I found, see how many times I can drop these screws in the process, is you want to get your button head screws on there, and then put your micro USB port on. And after that, you don't really have to worry about these shoulder screws going anywhere, because they're just going to fall down in that cavity. Make sure not to jack up the micro USB port. Oh, there it goes. There we are. Nice and snug. And you got those. And then you can just guide this straight through with those threads. It's just a through hole, so no threading needed for this part. It should snap together quite well as far as fitment goes. And then you put your chassis on. Beautiful, nice and solid. Go ahead and take this out because that's going to interfere at some point. Then go ahead and put this in here for giggles, even though I'm not going to be using it. And this set screw hole here was originally for the other brass piece for the crystal holder, that little bit there. But since I'm not using that anymore, just gonna do this. Make sure my mesh is fitted nice. Yep. Get my four little screws out. That's honestly the bulk of it right there, just getting to this point. Make sure I didn't forget anything. I'll go ahead and put these in there for giggles too. Be it actually. Now, of course, just like before, the top unscrews, and yeah, the flat edge, not the round edge, is what goes with it, I believe. It's like, I love it, but I also feel like this should be flush. 3D printing a prototype currently to see if I can use a V3 long pin PCB with the typical lens that it comes with, see if I can make that work instead. So you can either add this board on now or after it's in the hilt. I'm going to do it after it's in the hilt just to show that. Make sure that set screw is loosened. And it's got a nice little stopping point there. Beautiful. And what I like to do at this point is I'm not going to tighten these screws up all the way on this. I'm just going to get a good thread started on them, because this part can be a little tricky if you're not careful. as far as, you know, getting this positioned in the middle from those screws and those screws. So what I like to do is just get those threads started. Make sure we're still lined up real well. I like to just snug this up just a little bit, and then I'll put some more pressure on this. And it's still kind of finicky even after that, because since I put that tape on there to clear that gap, so you can hear it. If you tighten this too, let's make sure I got too tight. There we go. I find that if you go too tight on these screws, you can't move this up and down. So that's pretty on there. Oh, it's actually really good right now. Part of me thinks that the switch set screws affect this as well. Very little rattle. So then I'm going to tighten this up just a little bit more. Let's see how our threading feels. Nice and smooth, perfect. No binding whatsoever. I find that if you're not careful, let's just say this is completely loose, and you go to tighten this all down, it seems like it wants to, you know, it's kind of loose fitting in there, just a little bit, enough for it to make a difference anyways. So let's get it all the way on there, tighten it up. Is my orientation still perfect? Looks pretty good. And now I can't move that at all. Loosen it up just a little bit. There it is. So yeah, like I said earlier, and you know, to further my point, if I go and try to put this on it, let's see, how did I, before, tighten these up all the way. I think it was essentially fighting me a little bit. That's pretty darn good now. I don't know. I do recommend going on the light retention until you get them dialed in. There's a lot of different stuff going on with this hilt, so I'm just going to do what I think is right. Tighten that one up just snug. Looks like I don't quite have that centered there. Maybe that's one of the things that keeps fighting me. Get it nice and snug. Everything looks good. Tighten these up now. Give this another extra little turn there. Check our threads. Beautiful. Now to dial in the switches. Not enough. Is this still working? Yep, that's working beautifully. Oh, I was tightening. Getting something a little bit there. A little bit. Let's see what's going on with you. Uh-oh, did I jack this switch up? Yeah. Looks like I gotta replace that switch now. I think I put that on with too much tension and ended up pushing that switch into itself. Oh well. As long as I don't damage the NeoPixel, I'm fine. Man. That was not exactly what I would call fun, putting that on. Let's see how it does now if I go. So that's got some rattle to it. A little bit of rattle, not much. Give it that last little bit. Perfect. Good switch activation. I'm not too sure on the switch activation for this one, so I'm just gonna make it to where it sits flush whenever I press it to make the control card a little easier to deal with. This one's pretty well flush too, so at this point, slap that sucker on there. We are good to go. Easy chassis access. Recharge, recharge data access. Kill switch, kill switch. Beautiful. Very beautiful hilt. Very well made. I think that's really about it. If you stuck with me through these 2 videos on assembly and disassembly, I appreciate your patience. I'm by no means a professional YouTube content creator. I'm just a nerdy guy that likes playing with lightsabers and figure I'd help some people out along the way by showing videos like this. Let's see here. And one more time for this clamp card removal. Yeah, that's the best way. It's like kind of get both your fingers, get those switches pressed down. Maybe work your way back a little and forward. You got to kind of play with it a little bit. See, I got it that first time easily. This time it's fighting me. There it is. Seems like if you press on the bottom, yeah, that's what it is. If you press on the bottom to get it started, it comes out a lot easier. Freaking amazing hilt. I actually ended up taking a heat sink, turning it into a blade plug at one point. I think I originally did this for the KR Sabers Regis, but it just looks so good on this. But yeah, so that is my Saberkraft the Flame. New era in lightsaber building. Be a hell of a lot better if everybody got theirs right. Well, regardless, amazing hilt, crazy cool. Anybody that's in on the run is gonna love it. Hope this video helps. And until next time, may the Force be with you.